drill where they were just dumping the ball off, catching, turning, cross-covering, running through contact. It just seems like an organization and a team that is obsessed with the small things and the details and the basics and the fundamentals. Doesn't matter who they play.
You know, I've heard Bill Belichick talk about this in the past. He says, you know, we can go through all these details of football, but don't forget the fact that it's a block and tackle game at the end of the day, right? And who tackled better last year than the Eagles?
Not a single team.
Yeah, and that to me is one of the, and we don't, you know, we're not going to spend too much time discussing the nuances of tackling drills, but becoming a great tackling team is something that's forged in the fire. Like you do so because you put the effort in. And it's not as scintillating of a topic as seeing a 57-yard completion to some speedy wide receiver down the field in training camp. But for as talented as these guys are, the fundamentals are probably equally or comparably strong.
It's the manner in which this team was built. Like, it's a draft-centric football team. So these guys are all, you know, like, think about when you go back to your college days and you think about the kind of connection that you have to the colors that you wore in college, because like you go there, you're going to stay more than likely for 4 years. You're all young. You're all trying to like really like establish yourself. You get that there's a different kind of camaraderie that is built there. GM's trying to do the same thing in the pros. Like we just talked about Miami, right? What's one of Miami's biggest issues? It's a culture issue. They have a lot of mercenaries that have been in and out of there, and when things hit the fan, people just disperse. They just go like their own way. You don't get the sense that happens in Philadelphia. They're all kind of like marching in lockstep again, saying, "Hey, look, we're not defending anything. Last year's over. This is a whole new season." And they all trumpet the same thing because you know what? They're all in the same boat, and that comes from team building through the draft. No, not a whole lot of mercenaries. A few here and there. Look, Zach Bond's a huge pickup.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting there going,
they made that a priority, though, this offseason.
And you know what? I mean, it's just built the right way. And that's why you have confidence that it's going to be all right regardless.
Nobody wanted to do it yet on July 26th. Anybody want to put them back in the Super Bowl? You guys think they're
I'm ready to do it.
They're the favorite.
I'd be hard pressed to look if they stay healthy. I mean, who are you going to sit here right now and just kind of like really pound your fist and say this team is going to knock them out of there?
Ravens, maybe?
No. I'm saying in the Super Bowl.
Oh, in the Super Bowl. Yes.
I'm
You're
not saying
they're winning it.
Winning the Super Bowl.
Okay, so they're playing the Ravens. And
the team best equipped is the Rams, and then maybe if Green Bay and Jordan get hot,
you can make an argument
for half dozen
NFC teams, half dozen NFC teams, but the NFC is not as loaded as the AFC, and so there's less competition for the Eagles to get back there.
Show you live footage of their practice here, everything that's happening right now. So there's Caleb getting ready to go, and this team's going to look different, and hopefully for Bears fans in some really positive ways. Ben Johnson taking over as head coach. Our Courtney Cronin is there, Bears reporter, with all of the latest going on at Bears camp. You've been there, of course, as always, Courtney. What should we expect to see today, and what more can you tell us about how camp's going with Caleb Williams?
So, Laura, there is a whole lot of new head coach, new offense. So there's a lot of learning moments and a lot for players to digest during day 4 of training camp. Ben Johnson told me they're only a quarter of the way through the install on offense. So there have been some mistakes. I want to take you back to yesterday, a heavy red zone emphasis day that wasn't great for the first team offense. No sugarcoating it whatsoever. But for Caleb Williams to come away with 2 interceptions and some teaching points off of that, that is what Ben Johnson is trying to emphasize. He says he's not frustrated whatsoever with what he's seeing. This is exactly where the Bears need to be in the eyes of their head coach. So let me tell you what Ben Johnson told us, the same message that he told his players about those 2 interceptions. For Caleb Williams, on the first one, it was a bang-bang play. So the learning moment there for the quarterback is maybe move on to the next progression if the coverage is as tight as it was. But the receiver has to run his route better to be able to create more separation. The second of which, in the red zone, the back of the end zone specifically, an area that Johnson said it's either us or nobody. Williams throws the ball a little bit too low. TJ Edwards picks it off for an interception. So those decisions, the decision-making process that Caleb Williams has gone through, Johnson says sometimes you have to touch the hot stove to know just how hot it is, so you won't want to touch it again. Today's emphasis will be on third downs, install number 4, and learning not to make the same mistake twice.
I love it. Great insight, Courtney. We'll keep an eye on those third downs being emphasized as we go to live footage from Bears camp. And I want to dial in a little bit on what Courtney was just talking about. You see Caleb Williams on your screen. team. But first of all, a reminder, in free agency, the Bears went nuts on this O-line. They added so much. Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman. They also on the defensive side, Grady Jarrett. A lot of big names, right? And in the draft, I thought they did a really nice job. Tight end Colson Loveland, Luther Burden III. There's so many guys, Shamar Turner as well. But Dan, when you think about how Caleb Williams can really make the progression, some of the things Courtney was just talking about, how much of this is on him versus what Ben Johnson is doing from the coaching side?
It's 100% on both of them. It takes both of them. And to Courtney's report there, the thing that stands out to me in relation to the 2 interceptions, they're both happening in the timing of the offense, and that's where everything is going to be talked about with Caleb Williams in this offense. Getting off of the first progression and moving on. That's the building in that timing, building in that rhythm, and then the placement of the throw. Again, being elite while you're playing within the rhythm of the pass game, and that's the hiccup that has always been Caleb's back at OU, then to USC, and then to his rookie year. And that's
the challenge. Is it fixable? Like, how do you fix that?
Of course it's fixable, but for Chicago fans, it is not going to happen in September. He has to erase a decade worth of playing a certain style of football and rebuild the habits. It is going to take, candidly, years. You know, Ben Johnson rocket shipped with Jared Goff. Jared Goff took 4 or 5 years of the NFL in building that footwork part of his game up. And so it's not like it's going to be impossible into October, November, December. It's just going to take time.
And what about the idea of Caleb Williams lining up behind center, which he has not done very much at all?
He did it, I think, 7 times in college. And and I often say this, like when quarterbacks go from playing constantly with vision, and then you have to turn your back to a defense, there are parts of it that will be easy because guys will be wide open at times. But it takes so much time to see, don't see, and then see again, because you can get fooled that way. So I can appreciate Courtney's report just from the understanding of that's the only thing that really matters when it comes to this relationship.
We're in this different phase now of college football. It's the NIL era, and bear with me here for a second. Caleb was part of the early stages of it.
Yeah.
One of the realities of the NIL era, Laura, you know this from your weekends in the south of the SEC, is that, like, you bring these guys in, you recruit them, you get them to your school, and all you do for the remaining number of years they're at your program is find ways to keep them there every single day.
Retain.
One of the consequences of that is that hard coaching is hard to find now in college football. Sounds like Caleb Williams is much more receptive to what Ben Johnson is delivering into his ear every single day than maybe we saw last year under Shane Waldron and then eventually Thomas Brown, who took over after Waldron was relieved of his duties. Caleb Williams feels like he has to have, as Dan was referring to, some of the bad habits untrained first. Then you learn the new habits that prevent you from leading the league in sacks taken. I'm going to be a little bit more measured because I kind of got stuck last year being too optimistic on this Bears outlook, with Caleb having maybe what some believe, myself included, as the best circumstances for a #1 pick, maybe ever, if not for a long time. But the offensive line just feels like, in between the offensive line and Ben Johnson, the foundation is so much sturdier around Caleb Williams. I know we don't quantify offensive line play very much, but Joe Tooney received votes for Offensive Player of the Year last year. It's ranked choice voting, so you get to vote 1 through 5. I believe it was both Tom Brady and Teddy Bruschi, a couple guys who know a little bit about football, who thought that highly of his play last year. That's the kind of impact we're getting from some of these new players.
And forgetting Ben Johnson, like, that was the emphasis, is the offensive line.
Yeah.
It was Joe Tooney. It was Jonah Jackson. It was Drew Dahlman. It was within the span of about a week or so that they added 3 new members to that offensive line. Now, there are still questions about left tackle and how that's going to work out here. But that was a priority for this team this offseason, because I think it goes to everything we're talking about with Caleb Williams being comfortable and having to adjust, and they got to give him time and protect him. So by going out and fortifying the offensive line, they're hoping to make him more comfortable and obviously expedite the transition.
Those guys got to all play together, though. I mean, that may take a little bit of time to fully adjust, too. Go ahead.
The unfortunate thing for Caleb Williams, as far as, like, trying to, like, coach the fan base up to remain patient, is the fact that there's this guy in Washington who came out and was drafted behind him, who hit the ground running, and who now we're talking about he may be in the discussion for MVP this year in his second year. And remember now, last year, Chicago had their pick of them both. You could say you could have taken either one.
Right.
And this was, you had a staff in place that was in charge of caretaking that number 1 overall pick and developing it. And then you decided, hey, you know what, especially on the offensive side, this isn't good enough. And then you had to bring in a whole new regime. You had to rebuild the offensive line. And in Washington, everything is nice and stable. As a matter of fact, you know, Terry McLaurin notwithstanding, everything's just kind of like ramping up here. So you just wonder how much of that is in the back of Ryan Pohl's mind. How much of that is in the back of Caleb Williams' mind. Because look, I love the fact, though, that Ben Johnson is really taking him step by step and making this process oriented. I love that. I don't want to hear Caleb talk about, I want to be the first Chicago Bear quarterback to throw for 4K. I want to have this touchdown. I don't care about your stats. What I care about is the thing Dan was talking about and the thing that Courtney Cronin was talking about. How quickly does he get through progressions? Is he staying within the timing and the rhythm of the offense? Is he putting the ball high? We get it or no one gets it in the back of the end zone. Those are the process things I want to hear about. Because then we'll get to the, okay, now where are you in relationship to Jayden? Because I'm telling you, Chicago Bears fans are going to be sitting around going, hey, they're keeping an eye on what's going on in Washington now.
Are you comparing Caleb Williams to Sam Bowie?
No, but you just did.
What a pull by Shefty.
Oh, Adam.
What a pull by
He was
Shefty.
sitting on that when it was making him smile.
What a pull
I
by
love it.
Shefty.
Do you have something?
83?
I think, you know, Lewis bringing up, like, the step-by-step process, like, that's really how it gets done when it comes to at that position in this style of offense. And I grew up as a young player in the league in this style of offense, and the two things that, you know, I watched guys go to the next level in their performance. This is watching, like, Matt Schaub go and become a Pro Bowler in this offense. And then when Jared Goff was young under Sean McVay, the two things that stood out were, in practice, when you were in practice and we're watching practice tape and whatnot, when the special teams is going on or the defense has their period, the quarterback would be with the quarterback coach, and you would be going over the script, and you would walk through your footwork, and you would go hitch here and then hitch there. And so you're building those muscle memories of the third hitch here. And so there was so much time that would be spent building the muscle memory, kind of what you were talking, the new habits. Gary Kubiak was